Beware. Tonight's descent is unlike any other. These are the stories where the dead refused silence, guiding investigators to the very people who took their lot. If you dare to follow, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support fuels the next descent. The sun was setting over Los Angeles, casting a golden glow across the manicured lawns of Brentwood's Rockingham estate. It was June 12, 1994, and Nicole Brown Simpson stood in her elegant white dress, her blonde hair catching the light as she mingled at her daughter Sydney's dance recital. Her smile was warm, but her eyes carried a quiet weight, a flicker of unease that only those closest to her might notice. At 35, Nicole was rebuilding her life, a single mother of two, Sydney, 8, and Justin, 5, after a tumultuous 17-year relationship with O.J. Simpson, the former NFL star turned actor. She'd divorced him 2 years earlier, tired of his jealousy, his rages, his hands that left bruises she couldn't hide. That night, she drove to Mezzaluna, a trendy Italian restaurant where her friend Ron Goldman worked as a waiter, joining her family for dinner. Her mother, Juditha, forgot her glasses at the table, and Ron, ever kind, offered to drop them off at Nicole's condo on Bundy Drive. Around 10 p.m., Nicole returned home, tucking her kids into bed, unaware that Ron was on his way, unaware that O.J., consumed by obsession, was watching from the shadows. Nicole's condo was a sanctuary, a place she'd made her own after leaving O.J.'s mansion, but it was also a vault for her fears. In a safety deposit box at a nearby bank, she'd stored a collection of evidence, photos of her bruised face, torn clothes, hospital records from nights when O.J.'s temper exploded. There were letters, too, his apologies scrawled in his own hand, promising he'd change, begging her to stay. She'd kept a diary, pages filled with accounts of his abuse, like the 1989 incident when police found her hiding in bushes, her lips split, her eye blackened, pleading, "He's going to kill me." Nicole had shown the box's contents to her friend, Faye Resnick, her voice steady but urgent. "If something happens to me, this will prove it was him," she said, her hands trembling as she locked the box. She'd told her sister Denise the same, her words heavy with certainty. O.J. will kill me someday, and he'll get away with it because of who he is. That night, as she lit candles in her living room, the air felt still, the quiet before a storm she'd long feared. The attack came fast, brutal, and silent. Around 10:15 p.m., O.J., dressed in dark clothes, slipped into the courtyard of Nicole's condo, his rage ignited by seeing her live a life without him. Ron arrived moments later, glasses in hand, unaware of the danger. The knife flashed in the moonlight, catching Nicole first. Her throat slashed so deeply it nearly severed her head, her body collapsing in a pool of blood at the foot of her step. Ron fought back, his hands raised, but the blade was relentless, stabbing him over 20 times, his body crumpling beside Nicole's. The killer fled, leaving a trail of blood drops, a knit cap, and a single leather glove. Neighbors heard Nicole's dog, Cato, howling, but the street stayed quiet, the horror hidden until a passerby found the bodies just after midnight. Police arrived, their flashlights cutting through the dark, revealing a scene so gruesome it stunned even veterans. Nicole, vibrant and fierce, was gone. Her life ended at 35. Ron, just 25, a waiter with dreams of opening his own restaurant, was collateral damage in a rage not meant for him. The investigation exploded into a media frenzy. O.J. Simpson, the beloved Juice, was the prime suspect. His fame as a Heisman winner and Hertz spokesman making the accusation unthinkable to millions. But the evidence was damning. Blood drops at the scene matched his DNA found on Nicole's body, on Ron's clothes, on the walkway. The glove, a rare Aris brand, matched one found behind his Rockingham estate, where his white Ford Bronco sat with blood smears on the door. Inside his home, police found socks with Nicole's blood, a trail leading to his bedroom. His alibi was shaky. He claimed he was home, packing for a Chicago flight, but a limo driver, Alan Park, said he waited outside O.J.'s mansion for 20 minutes, seeing a figure slip inside just before O.J. appeared, flustered, at 11 p.m. A cut on his finger, fresh and unexplained, matched the blood trail, yet Nicole's safety deposit box with its photos, diaries, and letters was barely touched by prosecutors. California law, at the time, limited prior bad acts evidence, and Judge Lance Ito, wary of prejudicing the jury, barred most of it, calling it inflammatory. Denise Brown wept in court, begging to show the photos of Nicole's bruises, but only a few entries from her diary were admitted, their impact diluted. The trial, dubbed the trial of the century, began January 24, 1995, and gripped the world. O.J.'s defense team, led by Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, and Effie Pirro. Lee Bailey was a powerhouse, spinning a narrative of police misconduct and racial bias. They pointed to Detective Mark Fuhrman, who'd found the glove and had a history of racist remarks, suggesting he planted evidence to frame O.J. The prosecution, led by Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden, had a mountain of physical evidence, DNA, fibers, bloody shoe prints matching O.J.'s size, 12 Bruno Magli shoes, but stumbled under the defense's theatrics. The glove, a centerpiece, backfired when O.J. tried it on in court, struggling to fit it over latex gloves, prompting Cochran's iconic line, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." The jury, sequestered for 9 months, was swayed by doubts, sloppy evidence handling, missing blood samples, and Fuhrman's tainted credibility. On October 3, 1995, after less than 4 hours of deliberation, they found O.J. not guilty. Nicole's family, watching in the courtroom, collapsed in tears, their grief compounded by a justice system that seemed to fail her. The safety deposit box, her desperate plea from beyond the grave, had been sidelined, its contents locked away as O.J. walked free. The aftermath was a reckoning. A civil trial in 1997, brought by the Brown and Goldman families, had a lower burden of proof. No unanimous verdict, just a preponderance of evidence. This time, Nicole's box was opened wide. Wide? Photos of her battered face, her diary detailing years of abuse, O.J.'s letters begging forgiveness. They all painted a portrait of a man whose charm hid a monster. Witnesses, barred from the criminal trial, testified about O.J.'s stalking, his threats to kill Nicole if she left him, his obsession after their divorce. A photo surfaced of O.J. Cat wearing those Bruno Magli shoes, debunking his claim he'd never owned them. On February 4th, 1997, the jury found O.J. liable for both deaths, ordering him to pay $33.50 million. He never paid, moving to Florida to shield his assets, living off his NFL pension. The victory was hollow for Nicole's family, her sister Denise, her parents Lou and Juditha, carried the loss like a stone, their faith in justice shattered. O.J.'s life spiraled. In 2008, he was convicted of armed robbery and kidnapping in Las Vegas, stealing sports memorabilia at gunpoint. He served 9 years, released in 2017. His fame a faded memory. He died in 2024 at 76, cancer claiming the man who'd outrun justice for Nicole and Ron. The Brown family kept Nicole's memory alive, Sydney and Justin growing up without their mother, their lives shaped by her love and her loss. Brentwood's quiet streets held the echo of that night, the condo on Bundy Drive, a silent monument to a woman who tried to save herself with a safety deposit box, only to be silenced by a system that couldn't hear her. Her diary, her photos, her warnings, they were her voice, clear and unyielding, proof she knew what was coming. The world watched, divided, as her killer walked free, her story a haunting reminder of love turned lethal. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows. The evening lights softened the dusty streets of Piedras Negras, a border town in Coahuila, Mexico, where the air carried the faint hum of traffic and the warmth of a June day winding down. It was June 8, 2018, and Fernando Puran, a 43-year-old former mayor running for federal deputy, stood outside a debate hall, his broad smile catching the glow of streetlights as he greeted supporters. His wife, Cecilia, stood close, her phone raised to snap a photo of him with a young fan, the crowd buzzing with excitement after his fiery speech against cartel corruption. Fernando, a member of the Institutional Revolutionary Party, PRI, had built a reputation as a fearless politician, unafraid to call out the Zetas cartel that plagued his city. His dark suit was crisp, his handshake firm, but his eyes scanned the crowd, always alert, knowing the risks of his stance. Cecilia's camera clicked at 9:45 p.m., capturing Fernando's grin, his arm around the supporter. But in the frame's edge, a bearded man in a cap moved closer, his hand slipping into his jacket. Before anyone could react, the gunman pressed a pistol to the back of Fernando's head, firing a single shot that dropped him to the pavement, blood pooling beneath him as screams erupted. Cecilia's phone fell, the photo frozen in time, a chilling record of the moment a husband and father was stolen. Chaos swallowed the street. Supporters scattered, some diving behind cars, others frozen as the gunman fled into the night, his footsteps fading into the alleys of Piedras Negras. Cecilia knelt by Fernando, her hands shaking as she touched his face, her screams mingling with the wail of sirens. Paramedics arrived, their efforts futile. Fernando was gone, the bullet piercing his skull, a clean execution by a cartel sicario. The crowd, moments ago cheering his promises to clean up Coahuila, now stood in stunned silence, phones lighting up as videos of the shooting spread online. A CCTV camera across the street caught the act, the grainy footage showing the gunman's deliberate approach, his escape swift and practical. Cecilia's photo, later recovered by police, became a haunting piece of evidence. The gunman's blurred figure, a shadow in the frame, his cap low, his intent clear. Fernando's 10-year-old son, Fernando Jr., safe at home, would never see his father again, the family shattered by a single pull of the trigger. The supporter in the photo, unharmed but shaken, described the gunman's cold efficiency, his face unreadable, his purpose unmistakable. Piedras Negras, a city of 150,000 just across from Eagle Pass, Texas, was no stranger to cartel violence, but Fernando's murder hit hard. As mayor from 2014 to 2017, he cracked down on the Zetas, strengthening local police and refusing their bribes, a defiance that made him a target. His campaign for federal deputy promised more of the same: tough reforms, accountability, an end to the cartel's grip on Coahuila's politics. But Mexico's 2018 election cycle was a bloodbath, with over 130 politicians and candidates killed, most by cartels seeking to control local power. Fernando's name joined a grim list, his death a message to anyone daring to challenge the narcos. Police launched a manhunt, combing the city's narrow streets and questioning witnesses, but the gunman, likely a hired killer, vanished. The Coahuila State Prosecutor's Office identified a suspect, Jesus Salas Aguayo, a Zetas lieutenant, but he remained at large, protected by the cartel's net. Cecilia's photo, shared on social media and news outlets, became a symbol of Mexico's broken system. A politician gunned down in front of his wife, his courage no match for a bullet. The investigation leaned heavily on the photo and CCTV footage. Cecilia, trembling as she handed her phone to police, described the moment. Fernando laughing, the crowd's energy, then the gunshot that silenced everything. The image showed the gunman's cap, his jacket, a partial glimpse of his beard, but not enough for a clear ID. Forensic experts analyzed the bullet, a 9mm round, common among cartel hitmen, but no gun was found. Witnesses recalled a motorcycle idling nearby, suggesting an accomplice whisked the shooter away. Fernando's campaign team revealed death threats he'd received weeks earlier, texts warning him to drop out or die. He'd reported them to authorities, but protection was spotty. 2 bodyguards assigned to him were absent that night, a lapse that fueled outrage. The PRI condemned the killing, as did President Enrique Peña Nieto, but their words rang hollow in a country where 113 politicians had been murdered since September 2017. Cecilia, devastated, moved Fernando Jr. to a safer city, her grief laced with anger at a government that failed to protect her husband. The case stalled, the gunman's identity a ghost in the system, his trail cold by design. Mexico's election on July 1st, 2018 came and went, with Andrés Manuel López Obrador sweeping to victory, promising to curb violence. But Fernando's murder remained unsolved. His funeral drew hundreds, his coffin draped in the PRI's red, white, and green, as mourners wept and chanted his name. Cecilia, clutching Fernando Jr.'s hand, spoke of his dream to free Piedras Negras from fear, her voice breaking as she held up the photo from that night, now a rallying cry for justice. Social media erupted, hashtags like #Justicia por Purin trending as users shared the image, demanding accountability. The case, featured on a 2018 Dateline episode, Border Bloodshed, painted Fernando as a martyr, his defiance against the Zetas a beacon in a dark time. Keith Morrison's interview with a local activist captured the town's despair. We're losing our best to the cartels, and no one stops it. Cecilia's photo, shown on air, burned into viewers' minds. The gunman's shadow, a chilling symbol of impunity. Yet no arrests followed, the case buried under Mexico's endless cycle of violence. The Purin family carried on, their lives forever altered. When Shirnan P.A., Cecilia became an advocate, speaking at rallies about political violence, her son growing up with his father's courage as a legacy. Piedras Negras tightened security, But the Zeta's shadow lingered, their influence woven into the city's fabric. The photo, preserved in case files and news archives, remained a haunting artifact, proof of a murder captured in real time, yet not enough to break the cartel's grip. Mexico's laws offered no recourse. Double jeopardy didn't apply, as no one was tried, but the lack of evidence beyond the image and footage left prosecutors empty-handed. Fernando's death, one of 34,000 murders in Mexico that year, faded from headlines, but not from memory. True crime forums on Reddit dissected the case, users speculating about the gunman's ties to the Zetas, some calling Cecilia's photo a digital tombstone. The border town moved on, its streets quieter, its people warier. The cost of one man's bravery etched in blood, and a single frozen frame. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows. The winter night in Cortland, Mississippi, was sharp and cold, the kind that cuts through your jacket and makes your breath hang in the air. It was December 6, 2014, and Jessica Chambers, a 19-year-old with blonde hair and a cheerleader's smile, was driving her black Kia Rio along the quiet roads of Panola County. Her day had been ordinary, hanging out with friends in the morning, napping at her mom Lisa's house, texting about grabbing food and cleaning out her car. Around 5:30 p.m., she pulled into a gas station a mile and a half from home, her phone buzzing with messages. The station's cameras caught her filling up, her petite frame bundled against the chill, her face calm but tired. Jessica had been through a lot lately. Her dad, Ben, a mechanic for the sheriff's office, worried about her crowd, the whispers of drugs and bad choices. She'd told him people thought she was snitching because of his job, and the words stuck with him, a warning she brushed off with a laugh. But that night, as she left the station, something pulled her down a different road, one that led to a horror no one could imagine. Jessica's car turned onto Heron Road, a narrow stretch flanked by trees and shadows, far from the glow of town. She wasn't alone. Quentin Tellis, a 27-year-old she'd known for a couple of weeks, was with her, their connection murky, a mix of friendship and something else. Maybe a spark she didn't return. Tellis had been pushing her, texting about wanting more, but Jessica kept him at arm's length, her rejections clear in messages he later deleted. The night grew darker, the air colder, and around 8 p.m., something went terribly wrong. On that lonely road, Jessica's car was doused with gasoline. The liquid poured over her body, up her nose, down her throat. A match was struck, and flames roared to life, engulfing the Kia and Jessica inside. The fire was merciless, burning 93% of her body, charring her skin, searing her lungs. But Jessica fought. She crawled from the wreckage, her body ablaze, and staggered toward the road, her strength defying the pain. Firefighters, arriving at 8:10 p.m., found her walking toward them, a vision so horrific they called her a walking dead, clad only in her underwear. Her voice raspy from smoke, she tried to speak, her words a desperate plea. "Eric," she gasped, or maybe Derek, the name garbled by her burned throat. 8 first responders heard it, their hearts breaking as they covered her with blankets, rushing her to an ambulance. She was airlifted to a Memphis hospital, but by the next morning, her body gave out. Jessica died at 2:23 a.m. Her family left with nothing but grief and questions. The small town of Cortland, population 500, real. Jessica's death wasn't just a murder. It was a nightmare, a crime so brutal it shook the tight-knit community to its core. Her mom, Lisa, sobbed as she identified her daughter's body, whispering, "That's my baby girl." Then her dad called it beyond murder, a revengeful, hateful killing. The Panola County Sheriff's Department moved fast. Combing the scene where Jessica's car sat charred, its metal twisted by heat. They found her keys a quarter-mile away, a faint trace of DNA on them, and her phone, its records a map of her final hours. The investigation zeroed in on Tellis, a local with a rap sheet: burglary, drug possession, fleeing police. He'd been with Jessica that morning, admitted to it, but his story about the evening shifted every time police pressed him. First, he said he hadn't seen her after noon. Then, he admitted they'd gone to Taco Bell, hung out near his house. Cell phone data told a different tale. His phone and Jessica's moved together that night, pinging towers near Heron Road just before the fire. Surveillance footage caught his car speeding away, and deleted texts showed him begging Jessica for sex. Her refusals clear. Prosecutors believed he'd snapped, strangling her when she said no, then setting the fire to cover his tracks, not knowing she was still alive. The case wasn't clean, though. Jessica's dying words, Eric or Derek, didn't match Tellis's name. She knew him as Quentin, had for weeks. Defense attorneys hammered that point, arguing she'd named her real killer, someone else out there in the Mississippi night. They pointed to sloppy police work, a timeline that didn't quite fit, and cell phone data that wasn't airtight. A witness claimed to have picked up a hitchhiker that night, a vague figure who could have been involved. Rumors swirled, gang ties, a drug deal gone wrong, or maybe Jessica's fear of being labeled a snitch had caught up with her. The community split, some sure Tellis was guilty, others pointing to racial tensions, his blackness a factor in a town where mistrust ran deep. Online sleuths flooded social media, picking apart every detail, stoking division. The case became a national story, labeled by some as missing white woman syndrome. Jessica's blonde hair and blue eyes drawing cameras to Cortland, while other cases languished. In February 2016, after 14 months of investigation, Tellis was indicted for capital murder. His first trial, in October 2017, was a battle. Prosecutors laid out the phone records, the DNA on the keys, Tellis's lies. They said he'd suffocated Jessica, then burned her alive, believing she was dead. The defense countered with Jessica's words. The 8 first responders who heard Eric, not Quentin. They accused the district attorney, John Champion, of misconduct, claiming he pressured witnesses to lie, even suggesting Jessica called Tellis Eric in private, a claim with no proof. The jury deadlocked, some voting guilty, others not, and a mistrial was declared. A second trial in September 2018 followed, with new witnesses, including a man named Michael Sanford, who'd seen Tellis that night. But the jury stalled again, unable to agree, and another mistrial was called. Champion, frustrated, told reporters he was sure Tellis did it, but admitted the evidence wasn't perfect. "There's no doubt in my mind," he said, but he wasn't sure about a third trial. Tellis's shadow grew darker. In July 2015, 7 months after Jessica's death, he'd been linked to another murder in Monroe, Louisiana. Ming Chen Mandy Haixiao, a 34-year-old Taiwanese graduate student, was found stabbed over 30 times in her apartment, her body left to rot for 10 days. Tellis admitted to using her debit card, pleading guilty to unauthorized use. but denied killing her. Court records suggested he'd tortured her for her pinned, shallow stab wounds meant to inflict pain. Phone records tied him to the scene, just like Jessica's case, and he was indicted for murder in 2019. That trial, set for 2022, was dismissed over a speedy trial violation, but an appellate court reinstated it in 2024, with a new date set for December 25. Boyle, Tellis, now 36, sits in a Mississippi prison, serving a 5-year burglary sentence. His release expected in 2027. Mississippi still has a hold on him, meaning even if he bonds out in Louisiana, he won't walk free. Jessica's family waited, their pain raw. Lisa, her mom, died in 2021 at 52, never seeing justice. Her sister Amanda kept her memory alive, speaking of Jessica's love for cheerleading, her dreams of a better life. The keys, the phone, the DNA, they pointed to Tellis, but not enough to convince 12 jurors. Champion held off on a third trial, watching Louisiana's case where the evidence seemed stronger. Their case is better than ours, he admitted, his voice heavy. The Heron Road site stayed quiet, a makeshift memorial of flowers and crosses marking where Jessica fought to live. Her final words, Eric or Derek, echoed in Cortland, a puzzle unsolved, a name that might have been a cry for help or a misheard plea. The town carried on, but the wound remained, deepened by the lack of closure. Jessica's fight, her staggering steps toward those firefighters, was a testament to her strength. A girl who refused to let the flames take her without a word. Jessica Chambers' horrific death, unsolved despite her brave final words. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows. The afternoon sun filtered through the bare trees along the Monon High Bridge Trail in Delphi, Indiana, casting long shadows on the weathered planks of the abandoned railroad bridge. It was February 13th, 2017, a mild winter day, and Liberty Libby German, 14, walked side by side with her best friend, Abigail Abby Williams, 13, their boots crunching on the gravel path. Libby, with her dark blonde hair tied back and a playful smile, snapped a photo of Abby on the bridge, posting it to Snapchat at 2:07 p.m., a moment of carefree joy during their day off from school. The girls, 8th graders, inseparable since meeting in band class, had begged Libby's older sister, Kelsey, to drop them off at the trail for a hike, a favorite spot in their small town of 3,000. Kelsey left them at 1:35 p.m., the trail quiet, except for the distant rush of Deer Creek below. Libby's phone, tucked in its Harry Potter-themed case, was her constant companion, and as they crossed the bridge, she sensed something off. A man following too closely, his presence heavy in the stillness. At 2:13 p.m., she started recording, her instincts sharp, capturing a grainy video of a figure in a blue jacket and jeans, hands in pockets, head down, walking toward them. Her voice, steady but tinged with unease, caught Abby saying, "There's no path. The trail ends here, so we have to go down." Then, a man's voice, low and commanding, cut through. "Guys, down the hill. That video, just 43 seconds long, would become Libby's legacy. The key to catching her killer." The girls never made it to their pickup spot. By 5:30 p.m., when Kelsey returned, the trail was empty, their phones silent. Panic set in as Libby's grandmother, Becky Patty, called police, and a search began under the fading light. Volunteers scoured the woods, their flashlights sweeping the underbrush. but found nothing that night. The next morning, February 14th, a searcher stumbled across a grim scene half a mile from the bridge near Deer Creek. Libby's body, naked and covered in blood, lay beside Abby, who was dressed in Libby's sweatshirt and jeans, both girls' throats slashed with deep, precise cuts. Sticks were arranged over their bodies, an eerie attempt at concealment, and between them, a single unspent .40 caliber bullet gleamed in the dirt. Libby's phone, hidden beneath Abby's body, was recovered intact, its video a chilling record of their final moments. Police kept the cause of death secret, but released a still image of the man, dubbed Bridge Guy, on February 15th, followed by the audio clip of Down the Hill a week later. They praised Libby's courage, calling her a hero for recording the evidence, which sparked a nationwide manhunt. The reward climbed to $41,000 as tips flooded in, but the case grew cold. The small town, haunted by a killer hiding in plain sight. Richard Allen, a 50-year-old pharmacy technician at the local CVS, lived just blocks from the courthouse in Delphi. In 2017, days after the murders, he called police, admitting he'd been on the trail that day, claiming he'd seen 3 girls near Freedom Bridge, but didn't speak to them, distracted by a stock ticker on his phone. His tip, misfiled due to a clerical error, was marked cleared and buried in a box of thousands unnoticed for 5 years. Allen blended into Delphi's quiet rhythm, developing photos for Libby's family without charging, his smile masking a darkness no one suspected. The video, grainy but damning, showed a man matching his build, 5'4", stocky, in a Carhartt jacket and cap, walking with purpose. Witnesses later recalled seeing him that day, one describing him as muddy, bloody, and unfriendly as he left the trail. Police didn't connect the dots until September 2022, when volunteer clerk Kathy Shank rediscovered Allen's tip, her instincts flagging the timing. He'd been on the bridge between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m., exactly when Libby and Abby vanished. A search of Allen's home on October 13 uncovered knives, boots, and a Sig Sauer P226 .40 caliber pistol, its serial number U-625-627. Ballistics confirmed the unspent bullet at the scene had cycled through that gun, a rare match that tied Allen to the crime. He had no explanation for the bullet, only admitting he'd never let anyone borrow his weapon. The arrest on October 26, 2022, shocked Delphi. Allen, a husband and father, pleaded not guilty, but the evidence mounted. Libby's video, enhanced to 43 seconds for trial, showed the bridge guy clearly, his gait and jacket matching Allen's. Prosecutors revealed he'd confessed over 60 times in jail to his wife, Kathy, his mother, the warden, a psychologist, even inmates detailing facts only the killer would know, like the girl's throat wounds. In one call, he told Kathy, "I did it. I killed Abby and Libby," her voice breaking as she replied, "No, you didn't." A probable cause affidavit noted one victim mentioning a gun, suggesting Allen used it to force the girls off the bridge before slashing their throats, possibly abandoning a plan to rape them when a van passed nearby. The sticks, prosecutors said, were a hasty cover, not a ritual as the defense later claimed. Allen's interviews placed him on the bridge, his own words a trap he couldn't escape, especially after police released the video, unaware he'd already implicated himself. The bullet ejected from his gun was a careless mistake, left between the bodies like a signature. The trial, starting October 18, 2024, gripped the nation, held in a Carroll County courtroom under Special Judge Fran Gull. Jurors, boozed from Fort Wayne to avoid bias, watched the enhanced video. Libby's voice filling the room as her mother, Carrie Timmons, wept. Prosecutor Nick McClellan described the scene. Libby, naked, her neck cut 4 times, major vessels severed. Abby and Libby's clothes with a single deep wound. The unspent bullet, linked to Alan Sig, sour through quality and quantity of marks, was a cornerstone, backed by his confessions. A digital forensic expert, Brian Bunner, explained how Libby's phone, found under Abby, preserved the video, its timestamp, 2:13 p.m., pinpointing the encounter. Witnesses like Sarah Carball identified Alan as the man she saw, his clothes muddy and blood-stained. The defense, led by Andrew Baldwin, argued reasonable doubt, claiming Alan's confessions were coerced in solitary confinement, his mention of shooting the girls inconsistent with their wounds. They pushed an Odinism theory, alleging a pagan ritual pointing to the sticks, but Judge Gold barred it, calling it speculative. The jury, after 18 hours over 4 days, convicted Alan on November 11, 2024, of 4 counts, 2 felony murders for kidnapping and 2 for murder. On December 20th, he was sentenced to 130 years, the maximum, Gull calling it the most heinous case she'd seen. Delphi reeled, the small town forever marked. Libby's grandparents, Becky and Mike Patty, spoke at sentencing, Becky sobbing as she recalled Libby's last words. "Grandma, we'll be okay." Abby's mother, Anna Williams, mourned the future stolen from her daughter, who'd never graduate or have children. The community, once trusting, locked its doors. The Monon High Bridge, a grim landmark adorned with flowers. Libby's phone, its video a testament to her bravery, became the case's heart, featured in Forensic Files 2 and a Hulu documentary capturing their killer. Social media exploded. True crime fans dissecting the grainy footage. The chilling audio and Alan's confessions. The bullet, a forensic triumph, and Libby's quick thinking gave voice to 2 girls silenced too soon. Kelsey, racked with guilt for dropping them off, channeled her grief into advocacy, ensuring Libby and Abby's names lived on. The trail, once a place of laughter, stood quiet, a reminder of a hero whose final act brought justice. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows. The night was warm and quiet in Georgetown, Indiana, the kind of September evening where the crickets hum and the stars feel close enough to touch. It was September 28, 2000, and David Camp, a 36-year-old former Indiana State Police trooper, pulled into the driveway of his family's ranch-style home on Lockhart Road. He just finished playing basketball at a nearby church, a weekly routine with friends, his body still humming with adrenaline as he parked his Ford Bronco. Inside, he expected to find his wife, Kim, 35, and their kids, Bradley, 7, and Jill, 5, winding down for the night. The garage door was up, the light spilling onto the concrete, but something felt wrong. Kim lay sprawled on the garage floor, blood pooling around her, a gunshot wound to her head. In the back seat of her Bronco, Jill sat lifeless, still buckled in, her small body slumped from a bullet to her chest. Bradley, curled nearby, was gone too, shot in the head. David's world shattered as he fell to his knees, screaming for help, his hands trembling as he dialed 911 at 9:30 p.m. The operator heard his sobs, raw and desperate, as he begged for an ambulance. Neighbors gathered, drawn by the commotion, as police swarmed the scene, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, revealing a family stolen in a single brutal moment. The investigation moved fast, zeroing in on David, a man known for his temper and a rumored affair. Police found high-velocity blood spatter on his t-shirt, tiny droplets suggesting he was close when the shots were fired. His alibi, backed by 11 church friends, placed him at the gym from 7 to 9:25 p.m., but prosecutors argued he could have slipped home, killed his family, and returned. A phone call he claimed to make at 9:22 p.m. from the house raised suspicions. Why call if he wasn't there? The crime scene offered little else. No murder weapon, no forced entry, just a mysterious gray sweatshirt in the garage from an unknown male, later identified as Charles Boney, a convicted felon. Boney's DNA was on Kim's pants and Jill's shirt, and a palm print on the Bronco matched his. But in 2002, prosecutors ignored Boney, focusing on David. At trial, they painted him as a cheating husband, citing blood spatter and a shaky timeline. The jury, swayed by forensic expert Rod Ingrid's testimony about the spatter, convicted David in March 2002, sentencing him to 195 years. Kim's parents, Frank and Janice Wren, sat stone-faced, convinced of his guilt, while David's family, led by his brother Donnie, fought to prove his innocence. The case unraveled slowly, like a thread pulled from a fraying sweater. In 2004, the Indiana Supreme Court overturned David's conviction, citing prejudicial testimony about his affairs. A second trial in 2006 brought new evidence. Boney, now linked by DNA, claimed he'd sold David the murder weapon, a .380 handgun never found. Boney said he was at the scene but didn't shoot, pointing to David as the killer. The prosecution leaned harder on blood spatter, Ingrid again testifying that 8 tiny drops on David's shirt proved he fired the shots. The jury convicted David again, this time for life without parole, but doubts lingered. The sweatshirt's DNA, Boney's palm print, and his criminal history, 11 prior convictions, including attacks on women, suggested another story. David's attorney, Catherine Kitty Leal, pushed for DNA testing, and in 2005, the Innocence Project joined, uncovering Boney's connection to a similar murder. By 2009, Boney was charged and convicted for the Cam murders, sentenced to 225 years, yet David remained behind bars. The blood spatter evidence a stubborn anchor. The truth lay hidden under layers of time and neglect. In 2011, new owners of the Cam home on Lockhart Road renovated, pulling up the garage's old carpeting, untouched since the murders. Beneath it, they found bloodstains, missed by police, embedded in the concrete, along with faded Polaroids tucked in a corner, crime scene photos showing Kim's wounds, taken before police arrived. The stains matched the family's blood, but one photo showed a knife, never logged as evidence, suggesting a second weapon. These discoveries, combined with Boney's DNA on the sweatshirt, reignited the case. David's new attorney, Stacy Uliana, argued the blood spatter was misinterpreted. High-velocity drops could come from kneeling near victims, not just shooting. In 2013, a third trial began in Lebanon, Indiana, under Judge Jonathan Dark. Prosecutors introduced a new theory. David aided Boney, despite no evidence of them meeting. The defense called it a double jeopardy violation, as David had been acquitted of conspiracy in 2006. This time, forensic experts debunked the blood spatter, showing it was transfer, not impact, and Boney's DNA dominated the scene. On October 24, 2013, the jury acquitted David after 13 years in prison. He walked free, hugging his parents, his face etched with relief and loss. The aftermath was bitter. David, now 49, settled with Floyd County for $450,000 in 2014, far less than the $30 million he sought, and moved to Michigan, rebuilding with his second wife, Lisa, that day. Kim's parents, unwavering, still believed he was guilty, their grief fueling distrust. The Polaroids and bloodstains, revealed by chance, were never used in court. Double jeopardy barred retrying David, even with new evidence. Indiana law, like federal law, protects against retrial for the same crime, leaving prosecutors helpless despite the garage's secret. In a 2014 Dateline episode, Mystery on Lockhart Road, Keith Morrison ambushed David outside his new home, asking about his newfound Christianity. David, calm and resolute, spoke of faith and forgiveness, his words ringing hollow to the Wrens, who saw only a killer who'd gamed the system. Social media buzzed with outrage, true crime fans dissecting the case on Reddit, pointing to Boney as the lone killer, the Polaroids as proof police botched the investigation. Georgetown, a town of 3,000, carried the scars, its quiet streets, a reminder of a family lost and a justice system that faltered. David's exoneration sparked a debate about forensic science and double jeopardy. Blood spatter, once a gold standard, faced scrutiny. Studies showed it was unreliable without context, as in David's case, where transfer explained the drop. The Polaroids, possibly taken by Boney, hinted at a trophy-keeping killer, but their late discovery was inadmissible. David's supporters, including his cousin Sam Lockhart, rallied online, sharing case files and pointing to police tunnel vision. Critics, like prosecutor Stan Faith, insisted David was involved, citing his affair and temper, but no evidence linked him to Boney beyond speculation. The case, covered in 48 hours and 2 books, One Deadly Night and Searching for Justice, became a cautionary tale of rushing to judgment. David rebuilt his life, coaching youth basketball, but the pain lingered. Bradley and Jill would have been in their 20s, Kim a grandmother. The garage, now recarpeted, held its secrets, a silent witness to a truth that came too late for justice. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of a tidy house in West Valley City, Utah, casting soft shadows across the living room where Susan Powell stood with a video camera in her hand. It was July 29, 2008, and the 28-year-old mother of 2 was recording a home inventory, her voice steady as she panned the lens over furniture, appliances, and family keepsakes. Her blonde hair was pulled back, her blue eyes focused, but there was a tension in her tone, a weight that went beyond listing possessions for insurance. "This is just in case something happens," she said into the camera, her words deliberate, her gaze flickering toward the door where her husband, Josh Powell, might walk in. Susan wasn't just documenting their belongings. She was leaving a trail, a safeguard against the fear that had been growing inside her. She pointed the camera at her desk, her papers, her life, and said, "If I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one. Her boys, Charlie, 4, and Braden, 2, played in the background. Their laughter, a stark contrast to the chilling message she was recording. Susan knew Josh was unraveling, his controlling nature tightening like a noose, and she wasn't sure how much time she had left. The Powell house, a 2-story suburban home on Weiss Fort Road, looked perfect from the outside. Fresh paint, a manicured lawn, the kind of place where young families build dreams. But inside, cracks were spreading. Susan, a stockbroker with a knack for numbers, was the breadwinner, her steady income keeping the family afloat, while Josh flitted between failed business ventures, his temper flaring when she questioned his spending. He'd always been intense, his charm masking a need to dominate, but by 2008, his behavior had darkened. Susan confided in friends, her voice low, about Josh's threats. She wrote in a secret journal, hidden from Josh, that he'd warned her she'd never see her boys again if she tried to leave. She told her sister-in-law, Jennifer Graves, she was scared that Josh had hinted at knowing how to make someone disappear. Susan wasn't imagining things. Josh's father, Stephen, who lived nearby, had an unsettling obsession with her, filling journals with poems about his love for her, even proposing they run off together. Susan rebuffed him, her rejection fueling tension in the house. She was trapped, caught between a husband who controlled her and a father-in-law who wouldn't let go. On December 6, 2009, the air in West Valley City was bitter. A snowstorm brewing as night fell. Susan spent the day with her boys baking cookies, reading stories, her laughter filling the house despite the weight she carried. Josh was home, his mood erratic, planning a midnight camping trip with Charlie and Braden, an idea Susan thought was odd for a freezing Sunday night. Around 5 p.m., a neighbor, Giovanna Owens, stopped by, sharing a meal of pancakes with the family. Susan said she wasn't feeling well, maybe from the cold or something else, and went to lie down. Giovanna left at 8:30 p.m., the last person outside the family to see Susan alive. What happened next is a puzzle with missing pieces. Josh claimed he left around midnight, bundling the boys into his minivan for that camping trip in the Simpson Springs desert. 100 miles away, he said, Susan was asleep when he left, but she was gone. Her purse, phone, and keys were still in the house, her car untouched in the driveway. Susan, a woman who never left her boys, had vanished without a trace. Monday morning, December 7th, brought work. Susan didn't show up for work at Wells Fargo, and her daycare provider couldn't reach her. Josh wasn't answering his phone either. A coworker, alarmed, called Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, who lived nearby in Puyallup, Washington. Chuck contacted the police, his voice tight with fear. Officers arrived at the Powell home, finding it empty, the boys with Josh, who'd returned from his camping trip around 5 p.m. When questioned, Josh's story was flimsy. He said he'd gotten lost in the desert, his phone dead, and didn't know where Susan was. Detectives noticed his hands, scratched and red, and the minivan, clean spotless despite the supposed trek through snow. The house held clues too, a wet spot on the carpet, 2 box fans blowing on it, as if someone had tried to dry a stain. Susan's phone was in Josh's possession, her last text sent to friends about feeling sick. The police searched the desert site Josh described, finding only his tire tracks, no sign of a campsite. Suspicion settled on him like frost. The investigation deepened, but Josh was slippery. He refused a polygraph, lawyered up, and moved the boys to his father's house in Puyallup, away from Utah's prying eye. Detectives uncovered Susan's home inventory video, her voice chillingly clear. "If I die, it may not be an accident." They found her journal, pages filled with fears about Josh, her plans to divorce him, her worry for her boys. Her boys are her. She'd opened a secret bank account, hiding money to escape, and told friends Josh had life insurance policies on her, $1 million worth. The police searched the house again, finding traces of blood in the garage, too small to be conclusive, and a rug missing from the living room. Josh's story shifted. He claimed Susan might have run off, maybe with another man, a story no one who knew her believed. Her friends described her as devoted, her life centered on Charlie and Braden, her faith as a Mormon grounding her. The Coxes, heartbroken, plastered missing posters across Utah and Washington, their hope fading as weeks turned to months. Josh's life unraveled under scrutiny. His father, Stephen, was arrested in 2011 for possessing thousands of voyeuristic images, including photos of Susan taken without her knowledge. His obsession with her came to light, his journals detailing a delusional love, his belief she'd choose him over Josh. The police wondered if he'd helped his son cover up a crime, but no evidence tied him directly to Susan's disappearance. Josh, meanwhile, lost custody of the boys to the Coxes in 2011, a court ruling he was unfit. He was allowed supervised visits, but his behavior grew erratic. On February 5, 2012, during one such visit at a rented home in Graham, Washington, Josh locked out the social worker, pulled Charlie and Braden inside, and set the house on fire. The blaze killed all three, Josh's final act of control, leaving the Coxes shattered, their grandsons gone, Susan still missing. The police ruled it a murder-suicide, Josh's motive clear, to keep his sons from talking, to silence any chance of truth. The investigation into Susan's disappearance never stopped, though leads grew thin. In 2013, detectives searched a storage unit Josh had rented in Nevada, finding a letter Susan had written. "For family, for friends. I just want to get away from Josh." They scoured the desert again, following tips about abandoned mines, but found nothing. The home inventory video became the case's cornerstone, played in documentaries, its words haunting. "If I die, it may not be an accident." Susan's blood, found in trace amounts in the house, suggested a struggle, but without a body. Prosecutors couldn't charge Josh before his death. His brother, Michael, who'd helped him move to Washington, became a person of interest, but he killed himself in 2013, jumping from a parking garage in Minneapolis. The Powell family seemed cursed, their secrets buried with them. West Valley City Police never named another suspect, though they believe Josh killed Susan, likely disposing of her body in the desert or a landfill he visited days after she vanished. The Coxes kept her memory alive, holding vigils, speaking to reporters, their grief a quiet force. Susan's friends shared stories of her kindness, her love for her boys, her dreams of a life free from Josh's grip. The case gripped the nation, spawning podcasts like Cold, which dissected every clue, from the wet carpet to Josh's. Social media buzzed with theories. Some said Susan was buried in a mine, others that Josh had help from his family. The lack of a body kept the case open, a wound that wouldn't heal. By 2025, the Coxes still waited, their home filled with photos of Susan and her boys, their faith tested but unbroken. The house on White's Fort Road stood empty, sold years ago, its walls holding echoes of a woman who saw her fate coming and left a video to prove it. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows. The night was warm in San Diego, California, the kind of February evening that felt more like spring, with a soft breeze drifting through the Sabre Springs neighborhood. It was February 1st, 2002, and Danielle Van Dam, a bright-eyed 7-year-old with a gap-toothed smile, was tucked into her bed, her blonde hair splayed across the pillow. Her parents, Brenda and Damon, had spent the evening at home, Brenda out with friends at a local bar, Dad's Cafe, while Damon stayed with Danielle and her two brothers, Dylan and Derek. Around 9 p.m., Brenda returned, her laughter filling the house as she chatted with her friends in the kitchen, the kids asleep upstairs. The Van Dam home was a cozy two-story, filled with toys and family photos, a place where Danielle loved to dance and play with her dog, Layla. But as the clock ticked past midnight, something sinister crept into the quiet. David Westerfield, a 49-year-old engineer who lived 2 doors down, had been at the bar that night, watching Brenda, his gaze lingering too long. He'd been to their house before, buying Girl Scout cookies from Danielle, his demeanor friendly but unsettling. By morning, Danielle was gone, her bed empty, her family's world shattered. Brenda woke at 2 a.m., checking on the kids as she always did. She found Danielle's door slightly ajar, the room dark, and assumed her daughter was asleep. But when she returned at 9 a.m., the bed was empty, the covers tossed aside. Panic surged through her as she called Danielle's name, her voice echoing through the house. Damon joined the search, checking closets, the backyard, under beds. Nothing. The police were called, and within hours, Sabre Springs was a hive of activity. Officers, volunteers, and neighbors combing the streets. Westerfield, the neighbor with a tidy house and a camper parked out front, approached Brenda, offering sympathy but acting strange, his hands fidgety, his eyes avoiding hers. He mentioned he was heading to the desert in his RV, a trip he'd planned suddenly. Police noted his behavior. Their suspicions peaked when they learned he'd been at Dad's Cafe watching Brenda dance and had left shortly after she did. The Van Dam security system showed a disturbance around 1:45 a.m. A side door briefly opened, unnoticed in the night's chaos. The investigation moved fast, fueled by the urgency of a missing child. Police searched Westerfield's home on February 4th, 2 days after Danielle vanished. His house was meticulous, almost too clean, but they found traces of evidence. A drop of blood on his staircase, another on his RV's carpet. Fibers matching Danielle's blanket were in his dryer, blonde hairs in his bedroom. Most damning was a gym membership card, tucked under a dresser in his spare room, bearing Danielle's name and her family's address. It wasn't a card she'd carry. She was only 7, but Brenda recognized it as one from her purse, likely dropped or planted during the abduction. Danielle's fingerprints were on a cabinet in Westerfield's RV, her DNA and bloodstains on his clothing. The card, a small piece of plastic, was a beacon tying him to the crime in a way he couldn't explain. Westerfield claimed he'd never been in the Van Dam home that night, but the evidence told a different story. One of a man who'd slipped through an unlocked door, driven by dark impulses. Westerfield's life unraveled under scrutiny. A divorced father of 2, he was an engineer with a quiet reputation, but neighbors recalled his odd behavior, watching kids play, lingering at community events. He had no criminal record, but his RV trips to the desert raised red flags. Police tracked his movements after Danielle's disappearance, learning he'd driven to Glamis Dunes, then back to San Diego, dry cleaning clothes and dumping trash in a hurry. On February 22nd, a search party found Danielle's body in a remote desert area off Dehesa Road, 25 miles from home. She was partially decomposed, naked, her small frame hidden under brush. The autopsy confirmed sexual assault and strangulation, her death a brutal end to her short life. The fibers, blood, and hairs linked to Westerfield were undeniable, but the gym card was the linchpin, a deliberate clue Brenda believed Danielle might have left, a desperate act by a girl who sensed danger. The trial began in June 2002, gripping San Diego and the nation. Prosecutors painted Westerfield as a predator who'd targeted Danielle after seeing her at the cookie sale, using his proximity as a neighbor to plan the crime. The gym card, they argued, was no accident. Either Danielle dropped it in a struggle, or it fell from Brenda's purse, which Westerfield might have rifled through. The defense claimed contamination, arguing the Van Dam's open lifestyle, swinging parties, drug use, invited strangers into their home. They suggested the evidence was circumstantial, the card a coincidence, but the jury wasn't swayed. The DNA was too strong. Danielle's blood on Westerfield's jacket, her prints in his RV, fibers matching her blanket. On August 21st, after 9 days of deliberation, the jury convicted him of kidnapping, sexual assault, and first-degree murder. He was sentenced to death on January 3rd, 2003, his face blank as Brenda wept, clutching a photo of Danielle. Westerfield remains on death row at San Quentin, his appeals ongoing. His conviction a testament to the evidence Danielle's case hinged on. The Van Dam family was forever changed. Brenda and Damon faced public scrutiny, their lifestyle dissected by tabloids, but they channeled their grief into advocacy, pushing for stronger child protection law. The gym card became a symbol of Danielle's fight, a small act that helped catch her killer. Neighbors in Sabre Springs locked their doors tighter, their trust in the quiet suburb shaken. The case featured on Forensic Files in the episode A Leg Up on Crime highlighted the power of trace evidence, hairs, fibers, a card that spoke when Danielle could not. Brenda believed her daughter's spirit guided the investigation. The card, a message from a girl who loved ballet and her dog, a girl who wouldn't let her killer walk free. The desert where Danielle was found became a quiet memorial, marked by flowers and prayers, while the Van Dams moved away, their home a painful reminder of loss. The case lingered in San Diego, a wound that never fully healed, a story of a little girl whose courage outlived her. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows. The night air in St. Louis, Missouri, was heavy with the late summer heat, the kind that clings to your skin and makes sleep restless. It was August 28, 1989, and Tina Isa, a 16-year-old with dreams bigger than the cramped apartment she shared with her family, was getting ready for bed. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders as she moved through the small living room of their unit at the Darst Webe housing complex, a cluster of low-rise buildings where families scraped by and tensions simmered. Tina was a bright spot in her Palestinian-American family, the eldest of 6 kids, her laughter a constant in a home filled with the noise of her younger siblings. Her parents, Zain and Maria Isa, had moved from the West Bank to the U.S. Bank, to the U.S. years earlier, chasing a better life. But their strict cultural expectations weighed heavily on Tina. She was a junior at Roosevelt High School, a cheerleader who loved Michael Jackson, worked part-time at a Wendy's, and dreamed of college, maybe a career in journalism. But her father disapproved of her American ways, her job, her friends, her boyfriend. That night, as she folded laundry, she didn't know Zane was listening to her every move, his anger building over her defiance. Tina's life had been a balancing act. Zane, a grocer with a temper, demanded obedience, rooted in traditions that clashed with Tina's free spirit. He'd forbidden her from working, from dating, but Tina pushed back, sneaking out to see her boyfriend, Cliff Walker, a black classmate who treated her with kindness. Zane had caught them together once, his rage erupting in threats to send Tina back to the West Bank, where she'd face an arranged marriage. Maria, her mother, sided with Zane, her loyalty to him unwavering. Unbeknownst to Tina, the FBI had bugged the ISA apartment months earlier, investigating Zane's possible ties to Palestinian militant groups. The hidden microphones, meant to catch talk of politics, recorded something far darker that night. Around 1:30 a.m., Tina was in the living room, arguing with her parents about her boyfriend. Zane's voice, sharp and cold, cut through the air, accusing her of shaming the family. Maria joined in, her words venomous, calling Tina a disgrace. The argument escalated, and Tina's defiance turned to fear as Zane grabbed a butcher knife from the kitchen. The attack was swift and brutal. Zane pinned Tina to the couch, his hand gripping her arm as he plunged the knife into her chest. Tina screamed, her voice raw, pleading for her life, but Maria held her down, urging Zane to finish it. "Dee, quickly, my daughter Dee," Maria shouted, her voice captured on the FBI tapes, chilling in its detachment. Tina fought, her hands clawing at her father, her nails catching his skin, but the knife struck 6 times, piercing her heart, her lungs, her liver. She collapsed, her blood soaking the couch, her body still as the life drained from her. Her body still as the life drained from her. Zane and Maria didn't pause. They cleaned the apartment, scrubbing blood from the cushions, wrapping Tina's body in garbage bags. But in her final moments, Tina had left a clue. Her driver's license, tucked into her pocket earlier that day, had slipped out during the struggle, falling beneath the couch where her parents didn't notice. It was a small piece of plastic, but it would become a key to unraveling their crime. The next morning, Zane and Maria acted as if nothing had happened. They told Tina's siblings she'd run away, her defiance finally driving her from home. But her absence raised alarms. Cliff, her boyfriend, called the apartment, his voice trembling when Maria claimed Tina was gone. He went to the police, saying Tina would never leave without telling him. Her co-workers at Wendy's, used to her reliability, reported her missing too. The St. Louis police, already stretched thin in a city plagued by crime, visited the ISA apartment on August 30th, finding Zane and Maria calm, almost rehearsed. Finding Zane and Maria calm, almost rehearsed. They said Tina had been rebellious, probably off with friends. But the officers noticed the apartment's unnatural cleanliness, the faint smell of bleach lingering. A search warrant, prompted by the FBI's ongoing surveillance, brought detectives back the next day. Under the couch, they found Tina's driver's license, its edges stained with her blood, a silent marker of her final stand. The FBI tapes, reviewed after the discovery, revealed the horror. 6 minutes of screams, Zane's grunts, Maria's chilling encouragement, and Tina's last words, "Mother, please help me." The tapes were a bombshell, the first time in USA history that a murder was recorded by a federal wiretap. Zane and Maria were arrested on September 1st, 1989, their faces blank as officers led them away. The driver's license, coupled with the audio, was undeniable, but the investigation uncovered more. Blood traces on the couch matched Tina's, and a neighbor reported seeing Zine carrying heavy garbage bags to a dumpster late that night. Tina's body was never found, likely incinerated at a local landfill, but the evidence was enough. Prosecutors pieced together a motive rooted in cultural clash. Zane saw Tina's independence as a betrayal of his honor, a stain he believed only her death could erase. Maria, complicit, had chosen loyalty to her husband over her daughter. The trial, in January 1991, gripped St. Louis. The courtroom was packed, the community divided. Some saw Tina as a victim of oppressive traditions. Others viewed her parents as misunderstood immigrants. The FBI tapes were played, Tina's screams silencing the room, jurors wiping tears as Zane's voice growled, "Shut up!" The driver's license, displayed in evidence bags, was a tangible link, proof Tina had been there, fighting to the end. The defense argued insanity, claiming Zane's cultural beliefs drove him to a psychotic break, but the jury wasn't swayed. The tapes showed calculation. Zane and Maria had planned to cover their tracks, cleaning the scene, disposing of the body. On February 7, 1991, both were convicted of first-degree murder. Zane was sentenced to death, Maria to life without parole. The judge called it a crime of honor, a chilling glimpse into a mindset that valued control over a daughter's life. Zine died of a heart attack in prison in 1997. His execution never carried out. Maria, diagnosed with diabetes, died in 2000, still incarcerated. Tina's siblings were placed with relatives, their lives scarred by the loss of their sister and the betrayal of their parents. The Darst-Webbe complex, later demolished, became a symbol of hidden horrors, its gray buildings a backdrop to a tragedy that shocked a city. Tina's story, featured in the Forensic Files episode Honor Killing, Season 6, Episode 2, was a landmark case, not just for the wiretap, but for the driver's license that anchored the physical evidence. Her cheerleading teammates and teachers at Roosevelt High left flowers at her locker, remembering a girl who loved to dance and write, who dreamed of a future she'd never see. Cliff, her boyfriend, spoke at a memorial, his voice breaking as he described her courage, her refusal to bend to her father's will. The case sparked debates about cultural integration, domestic violence, and the power of forensic evidence to speak for the dead. Tina's driver's license, a small act of chance or defiance, became her voice, a piece of her that refused to be erased. Louis moved on, but the echo of that night lingered, a reminder of a girl who fought for her freedom and left a clue that brought her killers to justice. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows. The summer evening hung heavy over the sprawling 1,700-acre Moselle estate in Islandton, South Carolina, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth after a passing rain. It was June 7, 2021, and Paul Murdaugh, a 22-year-old with a boyish grin and a reputation for trouble, was at the family's dog kennels, his phone in hand, capturing a moment that would echo far beyond that night. His mother, Maggie, 52, stood nearby, her laughter mixing with the barking of hounds, as Paul recorded a Snapchat video at 7:56 p.m., the camera panning across a limp tree, and his father, Alex Murdaugh, making a muffled comment in the background. Paul laughed, his voice light, unaware that this fleeting clip, sent to friends with a tap on his screen, would become the key to unraveling his own murder. The Murdaughs were local royalty, a legal dynasty that had shaped Colleton County for generations, but their empire was crumbling under allegations of fraud, addiction, and secret. Alex, a prominent attorney, was drowning in financial ruin, his schemes unraveling, his control slipping. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, something darker was brewing. Paul and Maggie had been at the kennels, a familiar spot on the estate where the family kept their hunting dog. Paul was there to check on a friend's dog, his phone buzzing with messages, his Snapchat video, a casual snapshot of a moment that felt ordinary. Maggie, vibrant and warm, had driven from the family's beach house on Edisto Island after Alex urged her to meet him at Moselle, claiming his father was dying and needed her. She texted a friend, her words uneasy. "He's up to something. It feels fishy." She left her car running, her phone on a four-wheeler nearby, and joined Paul at the kennels. Alex was there too, his presence unremarkable to them, but critical in hindsight. The Snapchat video captured his voice, placing him at the scene, a fact he'd later denied. By 8:44 p.m., Paul recorded another clip, this one showing the dogs, three voices, his, Maggie's, and Alex's, mingling in the background, no hint of anger, just a family moment. But within minutes, everything changed. At 8:48 p.m., Paul's phone went silent, his last activity a call that never connected. Maggie's phone locked at 8:49 p.m., left on the four-wheeler. The kennels turned deadly. The violence was swift and brutal. Paul was shot twice with a shotgun, once in the chest, then in the head, the blast so close it severed his brain from his skull, leaving him face down in the feed room, blood pooling around him. Maggie, 30 yards away, was gunned down with an AR-15 style rifle, 5 bullets tearing through her torso, abdomen, thigh, wrist, and head. The final shot to her skull, instantly fatal. The scene was carnage, blood and tissue painting the ground. Yet the killer left Paul's phone on his body, resting on his buttocks, a detail that would haunt the case. Alex called 911 at 10:07 p.m., his voice shaking as he claimed he'd found the bodies after visiting his mother in Alameda, a 15-minute drive away. He told police he'd been napping at the main house, woke up, and drove to his mother's, returning to discover the horror. But the Snapchat video told a different story, one Alex couldn't escape. His voice, clear and unmistakable, placed him at the kennels just before the killings, shattering his alibi. Police arrived at Moselle, their flashlights cutting through the dark, illuminating a scene so gruesome it silenced even seasoned officers. Alex stood by the bodies, his white t-shirt and shorts pristine, no blood, no dirt, despite his claim of checking pulses and trying to turn Paul over. Detective Laura Rutland noted his cleanliness, her testimony later chilling. He was clean from head to toe. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, took over, collecting Paul's phone. Its Snapchat data retrieved via a search warrant. The video, sent at 7:56 p.m., showed Alex in a blue button-down and trousers, clothes he wasn't wearing when police arrived. Maggie's phone, found later on a roadside, a mile away, showed deleted calls from Alex, suggesting he'd tried to ping it to bolster his alibi. The timeline was tight. Cell data pinned the murders to an 8-second window between 8:48 and 8:49 p.m., with Alex's phone showing movement toward the house right after. A raincoat, later found at his mother's home, carried gunshot residue and possible blood, hinting at a cover-up. Paul's Snapchat, a fleeting moment of laughter, became the linchpin, proving Alex was there when he swore he wasn't. The investigation zeroed in on Alex, a man whose life was a house of cards. His law firm had fired him for stealing millions, his opioid addiction draining accounts, and a lawsuit over a 2019 boat crash involving Paul threatened to expose his fraud. Prosecutors believed Alex killed Maggie and Paul to buy time, hoping their deaths would distract from his financial crimes and garner sympathy. The Snapchat video, recovered by SLED, was a bombshell, its audio placing Alex at the kennels, contradicting his story. Social media buzzed with theories. Some said the video showed a murder weapon. Others speculated Paul had caught his father's odd behavior. TikTok sleuths dissected every frame, noting Alex's missing clothes, the raincoat's significance. The case gripped the nation, a fallen dynasty laid bare. Alex's surviving son, Buster, stood by him, but the evidence mounted: cell data, car GPS, and that damning video, all pointing to a father who'd betrayed his family. The trial began January 25, 2023, in Colleton County, a 3-week spectacle that captivated the world. Prosecutors, led by Creighton Waters, played the Snapchat video, its audio echoing in the courtroom as jurors heard Alex's voice, calm and casual, minutes before the killings. A Snapchat representative testified, confirming the video's authenticity, its timestamp unassailable. Witnesses, including Detective Rutland and SLED's Britt Dove, detailed the timeline. Paul's phone activity stopped at 8:48:59 p.m. Maggie's at 8:49:27 p.m. Alex's defense, led by Dick Harpootlian, argued he'd never harm his family, blaming an unknown killer, possibly tied to Paul's boat crash enemies. They challenged the blood spatter evidence, claiming contamination, but the Snapchat video was unshakable. Alex took the stand, admitting he lied about being at the kennels, blaming paranoid thinking from his addiction. Jurors saw through it. On March 2nd, after less than 3 hours of deliberation, they found him guilty of 2 counts of murder and weapons charge. The next day, Judge Clifton Newman sentenced him to life without parole, calling the case one of the most troubling he'd ever seen. The Murdaugh legacy, once untouchable, was dust. Alex, 54, sat in a Columbia prison, his appeals ongoing, his name synonymous with betrayal. Maggie's family, the Kennedys, mourned her quietly, while Buster faced a future without his mother and brother. The Moselle estate was sold, its kennels a grim reminder of that night. Paul's Snapchat, meant to vanish like all snaps, became his voice from the grave, a digital footprint that caught his killer. The case, featured in documentaries and podcasts like Murdaugh Murders, sparked debates about privilege, justice, and the power of technology. Social media kept the story alive, with hashtags like #MurdaughTrio trending as users shared clips of the video, speculating about Alex's missing clothes and Maggie's discarded phone. Colleton County moved on, but the scars remained. A community forever changed by a dynasty's fall and a son's unwitting evidence that brought it down. As this tale fades, another one waits in the shadows,